I'm Larry Menti. Coming up next on Jersey Matters, meet the only candidate for governor in New Jersey right now. He is an outsider. He's a businessman. But is he trying to hide part of his resume? Also, finding meaningful work for young people with disabilities. Those stories and much more because Jersey Matters. I'm Larry Menti. Welcome to Jersey Matters. The gubernatorial primaries are a little less than a year away, and we already have a candidate. Meet Phil Murphy, who is the Democratic candidate for governor. Thank you so much for coming in. I would assume that you announced so early because you don't have the name recognition of some of the other candidates.
Actually, the biggest reason we announced early, it's great to be with you, by the way, is our family. My wife, our 4 kids, and I have stopped talking about if or whether, and it was all about when. And our kids said, you know, Dad, you're out there talking about transparency and you're railing against dark money. Let's live it. That's really the biggest reason we went. There was really no magic to the date. It is also worth noting that if you're not a candidate or you're not a sitting elected official, there's a lot of stuff you can't do. You can't do research, you can't raise money, you can't get an operation up and running. So at a logistical level, it made a lot of sense. But we're very happy we made that call. We've been out there now for a bunch of weeks and it feels good.
All right, let's back up for a second and tell people who you are and why you should be governor.
Who I am, I grew up middle class on a good day. Just outside of Boston, Massachusetts. My wife and I chose Monmouth County, New Jersey, to raise our 4 children. I had a business career. I left that about 13 years ago and got involved in a lot of philanthropic and political and community activities. I chaired the board of 180 Turning Lives Around, a big Monmouth women's shelter, great organization. Started a teen helpline called Second Floor. I'm honored to serve on the national board of the NAACP. I became the national finance chair for the Democratic National Committee, and then served proudly my country and Barack Obama as the U.S. ambassador in Germany. We came back from Germany and started really considering next moves and really thought this decision through, Larry, for over 2 years. As it relates to why me, I say with humility, I think the next governor of this state has to have a couple of essential attributes. One is they've got to understand how you build and propel a sophisticated economy in the 21st century. I think I've got those skills. And secondly, I think more importantly, we need a governor who's prepared to make decisions based on what's best for the next generation and not what's best for his next election. So I say with humility, I think I match up well with both of those requirements, and we decided to get into this.
It was fascinating when you described, when you talked about your experience and who you were, you skipped over Goldman Sachs. You didn't mention them. You just said it was a business career. Yep. Does Goldman Sachs, your experience with Goldman Sachs, does that hurt you or help you? I
think it cuts both ways, and I don't try to dodge that for 1 second. So when I talk about a business career, I mean it in the biggest holistic sense, seeing how jobs are created, dealing with rating agencies. I actually worked around the world, so I've seen how it works not only in the U.S., but in Europe and in Asia. Goldman kind of cuts both ways. At one level, it's kind of one of the boogeymen on Wall Street. It's the firm that one of the firms that people look to and say, oh, those guys. On the other hand, I've learned a lot of technical skills that I think are quite relevant to the job at hand, which is to get this economy back on its feet. It's flat as a pancake, and it's an unfair economy to boot. We got to get this thing propelled, get it up and running, grow that pie, but also make sure everybody gets a slice of the pie, and that's what we're also missing.
When it comes to Goldman Sachs, what hurts you more, the fact that John Corzine was with Goldman Sachs, or the fact that Bernie Sanders railed against Goldman Sachs?
Probably the latter at the moment. I've known John for over 30 years. People have different opinions about how he was as a governor. I know what I stand for. I know what my skills are, and I know where the relevance is to the future of this state and to its people, in particular to its middle class. I'd probably give a little bit of a tilt toward Bernie throwing a little bit of gasoline on the fire over the past 6 months.
Speaking of Bernie Sanders, I was interested as I was reading about you and some of your proposals that you were going after student loans. That really put part of his campaign on the map. It invigorated young people. Are you stealing a chapter from his book?
If anything, he is from my book. We've been talking about affordability of college. We started a nonprofit, we being my wife and I, called New Start New Jersey, which is still very much up and running, now chaired by my wife Tammy. We started that organization, I think, 2 years ago, and one of the first things we did, we talked about college affordability. And we're trying to come up with creative ways that get at this dilemma that we've got. I mean, we've got a bunch of hurdles in the state right now that are holding people back, and in fact, they're slipping. Wages are not right. We're not creating enough good jobs. We're not protecting folks as it relates to sick leave or taking care of their kids so they can work. And a big one is college affordability, a tragedy that unfolds every day in this state and indeed in this country, but certainly in New Jersey, are qualified kids who want to go to college and can't find the means to get there. We've got to break the back of that.
You know what people think when they hear something like this. They go, oh, you know, it'd be great to let kids go free to college, or it'd be great to give them a break, or it'd be great to give them more student loans. We don't have the money for that, and New Jersey is suffering right now. What could you do? You
know, at one level, we don't have money. At one level, budgets are really thick books with a lot of numbers, and they're sort of abstract. But in fact, budgets scream out, who are you? What do you stand for? What do you prioritize? And if we're not facing up to the challenges we have in funding properly education at all levels, who are we as a state? So I think it's not just a question of do we have enough money or can we find the money? Let's reprioritize what we stand for as a state. I also think we can be creative. You know, some private sector firms are now offering student loan forgiveness as a benefit. I think we should be talking about that all over the state, getting more firms to offer that as a benefit. And by the way, if we can find the money, and we should as a state, saying, listen, Larry, your firm gives you loan forgiveness of $2,000 a year. What if we said you lived in New Jersey, we'll match it 50%, and if you lived and worked in New Jersey, we'll match it 100%. So you then get the private sector stepping in for part of that load. So I think we not only have to find the money and be creative and put our priorities right, but let's also try to find, as I say, sources that we might not be looking for.
And tax incentives for those who give loan forgiveness?
I think we have to have everything on the table. So I think if you treat loan forgiveness, student loan forgiveness, as a benefit, it should be treated the same way as other benefits are treated.
Well, speaking of taxes, we're going to have to take a break, but when we come back, it is the #1 problem. It's on everybody's mind, especially this gas tax right now, but other taxes as well, and also school funding and pension reform, when we continue our conversation with Phil Murphy, Democratic candidate for governor in New Jersey.